Hello and welcome to another episode of this amazing tutorial on Adobe Photoshop brought to you by OneLearn. In this video, we're going to be talking about creating and opening a project on the Adobe Photoshop application. In the previous video we gave you an idea of some terminologies that are used in Photoshop application, like dimensions, image size, resolution, and the likes. And in this video, we're going to be working on using these terminologies. For example, creating a new file, you're going to have to work on the size of the file, the resolution of the file. So this is where you are actually going to use that idea, that knowledge that you just acquired from the previous video. So we're going to be talking about creating a new project and saving a project on the Adobe Photoshop application. Now that we understand a few of the terminologies that have to do with Adobe Photoshop, let's move on into creating a new project on Adobe Photoshop. Now, like we said in Adobe Photoshop, in order to open up the application, you can either use your Windows button, or you just look for the Adobe Photoshop shortcut on your PC desktop. Now, when you start up your Photoshop, the next thing you do is to just get started right away. Now, definitely you're not going to see a blank document. Of course, you're not going to see all this. You have to create a new document by going over to File, New. Under File, New is the first option that's allowed over there. Once you click on it, you will see the option that allows you to create a new document. Now, this Windows screen might vary for different versions, but they basically have the same information. You will definitely see the name, which will be the name of your project. You will see a preset, which you can of course select. I'm using default Photoshop size, but I'll come over here and pick. It's basically just a preset to give me a default settings over here. I can choose to change it to a custom settings if I want to. Or in this preset, I can look for another preset, for example, international paper. There are others, of course. We have US paper, international paper, photo. We have web if you're designing for web. We have mobile and devices if you're designing for mobile and other devices. You see, for film and video, if you're designing for film or video, or if you want your new document to take the shape of other document or project that you have opened on your Adobe Photoshop. For instance, I have a couple of files open on my Adobe Photoshop. For example, this project, this project, this project, this project, and this project, which you can see in my tab on my Adobe Photoshop application. I think I forgot to tell you in the interface stage, all these things you see here are called tabs. They show you the project that are opened in your Adobe Photoshop application. So if I go down to File, New, I can either select any of these files here so that the current project I want to work on will take the size, the physical size or the resolution of the previous project that I've worked on or I was working on. For instance, if I click on this, you can see it has taken the shape. This is the width, height, resolution, and color mode of this particular project. I can easily just copy it into my new project, write in my name, and I'm good to go. But that's not what I want to work with. I can go ahead and choose international paper. Now, something about international paper is that it actually has other sizes. Now, there are a couple of different international papers. For example, we have A4, we have A6, we have A5, we have A3, we have others, but we are all conversant with A4, A6, A5, A3 because they're actually quite popular. We use them a lot. You can also use US paper size and resolution, where you have letter size, legal size, or tabloid size. You can also come down to photo, you can see different photo sizes like the landscape 2x3, landscape 4x6, landscape 5x7, landscape 8x10, or you can see portraits 2x3, portraits 4x6, portraits 5x7, or portraits 8x10. All these modes have different sizes, so it all depends on the size you want to work with. But normally you can start with default Photoshop size, then choose your width and height in inches, or you can choose it in pixels, in centimeters, millimeters, in points, in picas or columns. It depends on the resolution you want. But normally for print design, we usually work with inches. But if you're working with probably you're designing for a social media post or something, we usually work in pixels, so you can tell what pixels you're working. Maybe for a website, you're designing for a website or something, we usually work in pixels. But if you want design for print, it's advisable for you to work with inches. So that is for your physical size. This will tell you how your document will look either on screen or when it has been printed out. Now, moving on to resolution, we talked about resolution in the previous video where we said resolution is basically the DPI of a particular image or size. So DPI is dots per inches, which means that we have 72 DPI here for this resolution. You can put it in pixels per centimeters, but we're going to work with pixels per inch. So we have DPI, we have 72 here. We can change it to 150, we can change it to 300. I'll advise you to use 300 if you are working with print design. You also notice that your image size has increased to 9.01 megabytes, which means that the higher your resolution, the higher the size of your image. Now this is what we call data size. It just tell us the size of our project at that particular time, depending on our resolution, our width, and our height. Okay, you can also choose the color mode if you know what you're working with. When it comes to color mode, you can also pick your color mode. Pick the various color mode available on Photoshop. You can pick them from here. There are also what we call the background content. How do you want your background to be? You want it to be white. You want it to have a background color. You pick a background color, of course, or you want it to be transparent. This is where you select that over here. And then you can pick a color profile. This is an advanced option. So if you're a beginner, it is best for you not to work on this option, not to touch this option, unless you know what you're working with. Unless you have a specific settings that you're supposed to work with, you come over to advanced and you can change the color profile or the pixel aspect ratio. That's up to you. Now remember, if you want to create a new project on Adobe Photoshop, the first thing you're going to change is the name. After you've started a new document, of course, you're going to change the name. Then you either choose a preset. Of course, the preset will affect your size and resolution. You can either choose a preset, or you just go ahead and edit the size, the width. You can add a width, you can add height, you can add a resolution. Okay, you can pick the measurement of the particular size that you're inserting. Then after you're done with that, if you like your resolution and you want to use it for subsequent project, you can save it as a preset, so it will appear here as a particular preset and you can use it for next time. Or you can just go ahead and click OK. Now let's say I want to work with 5 inches by 5 inches, which will give me a square workspace with a resolution of 300. I'm going to leave it like this and change the name to one len. And I'm creating, this is my new project. You can see the name of the project right here, one len. You can see the color style. If I click on it, you can see the color style. And of course, right down here, we can see the size, the image size of that particular project, and it's currently on 6.44 megabyte. Now this our resolution is 5 inches by 5 inches. Now with our ruler, of course I will show you how to insert ruler later on in this tutorial. Now with our ruler, we can see that it's from 0 to 5 here, that's 5 inches. We also have 0 to 5 here, and that's 5 inches. So it's 5 inches by 5 inches, and we have started a new project. We can now do whatever we want on this our workspace. Now, what if we don't want to create a new project? What if we want to open a previous project that we have been working on? Let's close all this. We're not going to be working on them for now. Okay. Okay, let's say we want to continue working on a previous project. And one thing you need to know is that Photoshop files, when you are working on Photoshop files, you can save in PSD file format. I'm sure you know what a file format is. When you're talking about doc for Microsoft Documents, we have we have PPXT for PowerPoint presentation, and there are other extensions that are available out there, but for Photoshop we work mainly with PSD files. So maybe, for example, someone sends you a PSD file, it means that they have sent you a file that has been created on Adobe Photoshop. So that's why you have the name PSD. Now, let's say, for example, you want to open a previous project. Of course, that project will be on the extension .psd. So it will be the project name .psd. Any document, any project I save on my Photoshop will have the name of my project .psd. Now, let's say I want to open up a Photoshop project that I've worked on before. There are several ways to do it. The first is to click on open. Now, open will open up a new window that will give me the opportunity to search on my normal Explorer for the file that I'm looking for. Now, you just have to remember where the file is. For example, I'm going to go to the desktop. I'll scroll down to, I'll look for my folders. Photoshop, work files, and we have this. I found the file I want to open. I will click on it, and then just wait for your application to load up, and then it will pop up the project that you want to open up. Now, this is the project that we used in our previous video, but I just opened it up using file and open option. You can also use other options when you want to open a project on Photoshop. For example, you can browse in Bridge. If you want to browse in Bridge, you click on this, it will open up your Adobe Bridge application. Now, I'm not going to use that for people who don't have access to Adobe Bridge on their system or their laptop or computer. We're not going to use that, but Adobe Bridge works basically as a Windows Explorer application. You can easily just click on this. Once you click on this, to open up your Adobe Bridge, and then you can search for the file you want to open and open it up on Photoshop using Adobe Bridge. Now, you can also click on use Open As. Click on File, Open As. Now, it's just as simple as open. All you have to do is look for a extension that is supported by Photoshop. Click on the extension and click on OK, and it opens up the document. That's another way you can open up a project on Photoshop, or you can open a smart object, or you can open a recent file. Let's say if you come down here, you will see the recent files that you've previously opened on your Photoshop application. Then you can easily select any one of them. There are 10 on your list, always 10. So if you open up a new Photoshop project, it will remove the last project and make that new one number 1. So we have 10 files here. All these files are your projects that you've used in the past. Now, you can also clear this list. If you click on clear recent file list, you can clear the list, and when you've done that, the list will be empty and you can start having new recent documents. Now, let's talk a little bit about saving a document of Photoshop. Let's say, for example, you have finished working on a project. Let's say like this one, for example, you finished working on a project like this. You just finished designing it. I designed this from scratch in order to be able to explain to you some certain principles in Photoshop. Now, let's say, for example, you're done with your project and you want to save your project. Now, if you go down to File and you move to the bottom, you will see, if you move down a little bit, you will see some options like the Save option. Once you click on Save option, you can save your document. Now, this option is useful when you've already saved your project before. or you it will actually just open up a save window for you, and then you can save the project if you're saving it for the first time. Now, you can also use save as. Save as is the same thing as saving it as the first time. You can save it, enter the file name over here, pick the format. There are a lot of formats. You can save on as BMP, you can save as GIF, you can save as EPS file, you can save as JPG file, you can save as a PNG file. I'm going to save this picture as a PNG file. I will enter the file name, image 3. Let's say, for example, image. I'm just going to save it as image, and then I'll click on save. Now, I am currently saving this project as a PNG file. It's no longer going to be a PSD file. It's my choice. I can save it as PSD if I want by coming over here and picking the extension PSD. It just means I'm saving it as a Photoshop PSD file, PSD extension in Photoshop. But if I don't want to save it as a Photoshop PSD extension, I can save it as anything else. For example, the PNG file. All I have to do is come over here, click on this, and click on save, and it will to give you an option, we should tell you how do you want to save it. You want a fast compression. If you use this, there will be no compression whatsoever. If you pick on the slow method, there will be a small compression on your picture. Now you can actually use the interlaced. You can save it interlaced, or you can decide not to use the interlaced. If I click on OK, the file is going to save. Now all this depends on the speed of your computer. You can see at the bottom here it's saying saving, and it's showing you the percentage at which it's saving. So all you have to do is hold on and wait for it to finish saving. You can choose to cancel the saving by clicking on that little X over there, but I'm not going to do that because I want it to save. Now all you have to do, the saving depends on the speed of your computer. So if it's moving too slow on your computer, you just have to be patient. Eventually the document will save, because the larger the file on Photoshop, the longer it will take to save the file on your Photoshop. So you just have to be patient. Now mine is taking a little bit of time. I'm going to pause the video now. I will resume it once it's done saving. So there we go, it is done saving now. The reason why it took so much time is because the file is very large and my system is not really 100%. So I'm just going to move back to where I saved the file, which is work files. And here is the file that I have saved from my Photoshop application. Now that is how you can save into different formats. That is one of the ways you can save into different formats. Or you can also choose to save for web. Now if you're working on a web page, this option is actually really amazing, but unfortunately you can see they said the image size, the image exceeds the size, so I might experience error. So this is because the resolution of my image is too large, so I didn't exactly use the resolution for web. So I'm going to go back to this one. Let me save this one. We'll talk about all this later on in the video. I'm just giving you a preamble on how the save button works. Now, this is another way you can save on Photoshop. You can choose to come over here and pick the type, the extension. Let's say, for example, JPEG. You can pick your options, the quality, your blur, anything else. You can change the settings. You can come over here and change the size. You can resize it however you want. So Photoshop actually gives you the opportunity to save your design in the highest of quality or the lowest of quality, depending on how you want. Now, save for web is actually perfect for when you are saving your design for probably a website, or a social media platform. Okay, so that is how you save on Photoshop. You can also use the import and export, but we'll talk about that later on our video when we're focusing on the menu. Now that is how you can save a project or open up a project on Photoshop. So I know Photoshop might seem a little bit complex, but trust me, it's easier than you think. All you have to do is keep practicing on it, and you find out that all these things that we're working on right now are actually pretty easy once you come to understand what you're working on. In this video, we talked about creating and saving a project file on the Adobe Photoshop application. Now, we basically worked with the terminologies that we've learned before, like image size, dimensions, and resolution, and how we use all this to create a new project or work on a previous project on Photoshop. We looked at the various ways of opening a new project file on Photoshop. But in the next video, we're going to move on into the tools that can be used in the Photoshop application. Now we're going to be focusing on these tools as from, I'll get started with that from the next video.